I mean, what?
I mean, it tells us more and more about DOJ task itself with government efficiency, but doesn't know the inner workings of government. These are people who are not government employees, have never served in any level of government before. These are individuals who are slashing and dashing in whatever way that they can. This particular story affects me on a personal level because my cousin received one of those letters. He works there.
And what did it say? How did they phrase it?
Essentially the same way that they did the ones that we heard about 2 weeks ago. It didn't necessarily say exactly when these people would get paid or if they would get paid. It was, today is basically your last day. And to not report back. Extremely short, maybe 3 sentences. And for someone, in my cousin's case, who's worked there for well over a decade, almost 2 decades, actually, 16 years, at this point, it was a very tragic situation.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you this, because we just saw this rather extraordinary press briefing with Elon Musk standing, the president sitting, and he said, you know, I'm going to make mistakes. I might sometimes not say the true thing, but, you know, you guys will tell me that I'm making mistakes, blah, blah, blah. Is this just a big freaking honking mistake that is affecting potentially the nuclear stockpile and the lives of those who have been working there as experts?
I swear. Y'all just really go have these people, these conservatives screaming at me because they're going to say, that's a Republican who disagrees with something that the Trump administration did. Now, when it comes to, my larger problem is the attacks on the federal government worker, as if, for one, they don't pay taxes, and that they're not voters. Like, there's this characterization of federal government workers as lazy. So all of this is kind of built into that. And so this very indiscriminate number, these people exist at these agencies for a reason. What I would like for the Trump administration to do, even in explaining, you know, this whole transparency argument, is to do an assessment of what it is that you need. I am very skeptical that they've been able to do an assessment to see what they need at these agencies before just, as we get 300 here, there's another 400 here, because that is an impact to that. And so what I want to hear from the Trump administration is, we've covered all our bases, and it seems here, at least with this particular story, that they didn't. Oh, yeah, just make this so.
Well, as the other Republican, I'll do you a solid and stand with you on this one, okay?
There we go.
But it is the risk of the burn it all down approach, and it's the risk of using ignorance as a tool to burn it all down. There's certainly pressure from those who voted for this, who want things to happen fast. And so DOJ, the Trump administration, is moving quickly, but it comes at the expense of making mistakes. I will say this, though. We also saw that this is kind of like, you know, zero-based budgeting in a way, right? Where you have to justify some of these agencies and their responsibilities. Members of Congress, nothing is a sacred cow. Members of Congress made calls, they complained, they made the case, voila, it was fixed, and they reversed it. Maybe we'll see that happen with some other agencies. Maybe we won't. Thankfully, it happened for this one.
But this particular one's tool and utility is actually in the name. So it doesn't even take that much for them to kind of figure out what they do. I think that in the whole burn it all down approach, they're recognizing that people on the ground have a lot of distrust and disinterest in government, and quite frankly are upset with systems in general. So they're using that to fuel the fire, to eradicate things that put America at risk. And when we talk about things like this, we're talking America's national security. For the Republican Party, which is run on the safety and protection of the United States and being a leader of the world when it comes to our military, to ensure that they are hurting people in this process, where we know what our adversaries are doing. We know that they want to attack America's greatest weakness, and many of them cheered it on when President Trump got elected because they recognized his folks don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're exactly right. And look, Democrats, there are a lot of Democrats in Congress who are willing to give the Trump administration a chance when they said, we want to go in, we want to create more government efficiency, we want to do a complete audit. But you don't do that within the first 3 weeks of the administration. When you don't, first of all, you have people who have never worked in government, who have no fundamental understanding of how the process works, number one. And number two, these are the stories that we have to tell. If we are going out to talking to Americans, talking to voters and saying, this is why you have to do it the right way, we have to tell the stories about how this is going to hurt the safety of Americans, how this could impact, farmers with some of the USAID cuts. We actually have to put these in layman's terms so that people can actually understand that, yeah, sure, Everyone wants government to work more efficiently. Everyone wants their taxpayer dollars to be stretched to the furthest. But when it starts to hurt you and your neighbors and your families, those are the stories that we have to tell.
Everybody's right.
Oh, there's a hot take.
I'll tell you, there's another thing here that really bothers me, Sarah, and this is a type of hypocrisy that I've seen for a while now. There's always been, this kind of hyperventilating, rightly so I should add, over protecting middle-class workers and the working class and that sort of thing, unless they work for the government. Then they don't count. Then they're not real Americans all of a sudden. Then their jobs are disposable. You can cut them off immediately. That is a different type of elitism that has now crept into, the right, where there's an elitism against working class people who have civil service jobs. When I was growing up, for black people, people of color, civil service jobs is one of your only ways to get into the middle class. You were told, my father was told to be a janitor when he was in school, and he was brilliant. He actually went back to school, became a doctor, but he was a probation officer for years. And that wasn't necessarily your ceiling, but man, was it a way for people to, have middle-class lives, send their kids to school, all these types of things.
Generation.
Yeah, yes. But those jobs are important. They're in jobs. And also, people feel good about working civil service jobs many of the times. Many times they get really good benefits from doing those jobs that you can't get in the private sector. To have it wiped away, and to me, it seems like they're just laughing about it, the way that I think Musk is too flippant about the way that he does it. Thoughtful consideration about cutting these things, nobody can complain with. Of course, there's fraud and waste in government. We all want that to go away. But you have to be more thoughtful about it because these are people's lives.